You are watching Notepad. I'm your host, Ibrahim Sani. It's good to be back in the studio yet again. And the conversation, of course, right now is how will the year shape up for the financial world as well as for your world, especially. Over the course of last year, we've been talking to a lot of industry captains and, of course, the stakeholders surrounding the business world. Today, in my studio right now, I have with me Khairul Nizam, the CEO of FAA, or the Finance Accreditation Agency, here to discuss with us some of their plans on what is in store for this year. Khairul, thank you again for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
It's very rare do we get guests in the studio, but for now, we would like to enjoy your company to hear what you have to share about with FAA. So if there is a regular individual out there listening in on the interview, what would be some of the thoughts that you want to share with them in terms of what FAA is and what FAA stands for?
Thank you for having me here. Again, I'm honored to be in the studio. FAA, we are a body that was established, has been established by Bank Negara Malaysia and the Securities Commission of Malaysia to really support human capital development for financial services industry. So we do a lot of work with financial institutions, banks, insurance companies, and of course industry bodies too. The work that we do to support that human capital development is in advancing learning and talent development. So one particular area of work that we do is providing quality assurance, doing assessment, evaluation of learning programs, training programs that are offered for financial services industry. Another part of work relating to that is a capacity building in sharing our perspectives, international best practices on how to design and develop training programs properly, and so on. We also do a lot of work in the areas of competency. We work with our clients, meaning the financial institutions and financial services industry bodies, in developing competency framework in some cases, competency profiles for certain job functions in other cases, and carry out the analysis, benchmarking, and assessment and accreditation of all that. So it is really in support of human capital development for financial services industry. So for people are not...
I see that you have accredited individuals, you have accredited organizations, and you have learning standards that you have put in place. So what kind of accreditation does one get from an FAA process?
As an individual who is sort of working or practicing in financial services industry, the work that we do is to assess competencies for those financial services professionals. As I mentioned before, we work with financial institutions to, first of all, develop and agree on the competency profiles that are needed for certain job functions, that gives clarity as to what sort of competencies are required at what level for what job functions. We then carry out the competency analysis and assessment and what we call individual accreditation, or really competency accreditation. That is an initiative that is to support human capital development to affirm a financial services professional as to the competencies that person has. It is also an exercise to perhaps if colleagues in financial services industry are not where they should be, an exercise to guide the competency interventions or competency development pathways that should be made available to those colleagues, and what sort of learning programs that those colleagues should make themselves available to.
So try and share with us some of the flavor that you have in terms of the competency programs that you speak of. What would be some of the, I mean, I'm not asking you to list everything down, but some of the ideas that you can share? Is it risk management? Is it financial profiling? What is it?
Yeah, when it comes to competencies, it's of course about skill sets, and skill sets that are needed to be are needed to support the growth of the industry today and beyond, and the application of those skill sets. When it comes to financial services, the core competencies, the core skill sets are, of course, the technical skill sets relating to, as you said, risk management, regulatory compliance, sales and marketing, and so on. Those are the skill sets, those are the competencies that would be needed now, and we feel for future growth of the industry as well.
Two things I want to ask you. What about issues relating to ethics? And the second one is issues relating to digital transformation. Are these two items inculcated in some of the accreditation programs that you build?
Indeed. In addition to the core competencies that I've mentioned, we've also done a lot of work with financial institutions on the managerial, leadership, self-management competencies, including what you mentioned on being innovative, being able to chart out the digital journey of financial services, as well as the other types of leadership competencies like agility and adaptiveness, being able to innovate and being able to implement innovative ideas, being empathic, which is very important these days, I suppose, even in
the 6 months moratorium comes into the picture when you talk about empathy.
Even in the best of times.
Yeah.
Those are the competencies that are included, of course, in the competency work that we do with the industry.
Let's talk about the relationship that you have between Securities Commission and Bank Negara. You were mentioning that you are part of a Bank Negara agency, but the correlation between the three of these bodies.
Yeah, we, as I mentioned, we were established by Bank Negara and Securities Commission. We do work with them in coordinating the support that is to be provided to the financial services industry in terms of human capital development.
The relationship also involves, what I understand, with a lot of bodies locally and internationally, including that of the rating agencies like Moody's and even Fitch. So what is the correlation between all these bodies?
We don't really work with rating agencies in terms of their rating exercises and stuff like that. We have done a lot of work though with the training arms of the rating agencies. Some of the training agencies are very active in also providing training, providing learning programs on financial services, and we have accredited some of those programs that are offered by the rating agencies. For the regulators, Bank Negara and SC, as you mentioned before, ethics is an important part. Ethics and professionalism is something that the regulators are, of course, would want the financial institutions, the financial services professionals to really embed or incorporate into their conduct. Therefore, when it comes to competency assessment, when it comes to learning programs, we've always worked with financial institutions and our clients to really incorporate and embed ethics and professionalism in not only learning programs but also in the broad competencies that people should have.
The thing about the financial industry sector is that there's a lot of licensing bodies, anywhere from SC licenses to professional body licenses, accounting standards licenses, many other licenses out there, including CFA, they're kind of all the letters that comes along with it. How does the accreditation programs by FAA complement these kind of I guess, long trusted programs that is being recognized internationally, does it add value, basically?
Yes, definitely. There are two sort of broad ways how we work with in that space. A lot of the licensing requirements will come with requirements on learning programs, requirement on continuing professional development, and so on. We've worked with a lot of the providers of those continuing professional development programs that are necessary for licensing requirements in us giving quality assurance, carrying out quality assurance, carrying out evaluation and assessment of those learning programs. We've also worked with industry bodies that are whose members are required to go through this licensing requirement. We've worked with some of them in making sure that the competencies again that are needed in addition to to support the licensing requirement, that those competencies are there. And we work with those industry bodies in again coming up with perhaps competency framework or competency profiles. We work with them in quality assuring programs that are needed to support that acquisition, if you like, of those competencies. And in some cases we do also carry out competency assessment. So in Malaysia, in financial services industry in Malaysia, I think we are quite fortunate that human capital development is a major agenda, and it is supported properly, really, by the regulators, by the industry bodies, and of course, people like us too.
Fantastic. There's plenty more that needs to be discussed, but for now we'll go for a short break. When we come back, we'll ask FAA about their accreditation process. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I have with me the FAA CEO, Khairul Nizam, talking about their body and the kind of value add that they bring to the financial services sector of the country. Khairul, let's talk a little bit more about the accreditation process that an interested party would want to go through and the kind of partnership that they want to build with FAA. What would be some of the ideas that they must think about when they want to partner up with FAA?
So when it comes to the accreditation part of our work, there are again two parts to that. One is accreditation on learning programs or training programs, which is really us giving that external quality assurance services to our clients who are training providers or higher learning institutions of higher learning too. The very first work that we always do with our clients when it comes to program accreditation is to really discuss with them and guide them too on how to apply international best practices in designing and developing their learning programs. They then submit those learning programs to us for review, and we work with our with our team, with our board, with our panel assessors too, in carrying out a review in terms of both content of the program as well as the design of the program. And we make use of international best practices in terms of design and development as benchmark for our assessment, and we've given also a lot of guidances and standards relating to all those areas. When it comes to the other accreditation work that we do, which is what we call individual accreditation or really competency accreditation, that work is that always starts with us working with our clients to agree on a certain competency profiles or competency framework that will anchor the competency accreditation. Of course, we work with a lot of institutions, our clients, in developing those competency frameworks or competency profiles. The assessment is done in a variety of ways, depending on the needs of the clients. But the exercise is really to gauge the level of competencies that are needed and that are there, and to also guide the development of those competencies, the development pathways, if you like, on how colleagues in financial services industry should go about in acquiring those competencies.
The timeline, when we talk about the duration from first point of contact all the way until the programs are rolled out and they get accredited along the way, how long does it take?
For program accreditation, we give ourselves our client charter, so to speak. We give ourselves around 8 weeks to complete any program accreditation exercises. But of course, a lot of that will also depend us working very closely to make sure that the programs are right, that the learning programs that are submitted to us are right in terms of content and in terms of structure. For competency accreditation, the individual accreditation, that varies, because there are a lot of parts to that work. If it is based on a competency profile or competency framework that is there, then it can be done quite fast. When I say fast, again, around 8 weeks or so. But development of competency profiles or competency framework, that can take a bit of time. When we do all our work, we do work with resources that we have internally in FAA, also resources that are there in the industry in Malaysia and outside. We always bring international best practices, international perspectives, industry perspective, academic perspectives into our work. So the process is quite robust. The consultation that is done for our work is quite extensive. Therefore, for some of the competency accreditation, especially as well as program accreditation, we do make sure that things are done not only in the right time frame, but also with the right perspectives.
Yeah, let's also talk about how things have been for 2020 then, because it seems like a lot of your work can also be done remotely when it comes to creating content. How have FAA fared in this year? Last year. There you
go. We've been quite fortunate in that a lot of our processes, a lot of our workflow and everything relies on systems, on online systems, and we've been doing that for some years already, even before 2020. So in 2020, the disruption in terms of workflow and processes for us internally in FAA has been quite smooth, I would say. Of course, there are kinks that we've managed to iron out. But for our clients too, some of them have, of course, found it challenging in carrying out, for example, learning programs online instead of face-to-face. For those clients, we've worked quite closely with them in giving guidances on transforming physical face-to-face training programs into an online environment, or what is going to be quite popular too, I suppose, has been popular and going to be quite popular too, what is always called blended learning, a combination of learning in physical setting combined with learning in an online environment. So when it comes to learning and training programs, 2020 has sort of highlighted a few trends, online being one of them. Another trend is bite-sized learning, where learnings are made more focused in smaller chunks and made more manageable for both learners as well as learning providers to handle. And I think those trends will definitely continue over the next few years and beyond. And those are, to me, very good things. They will make, of course, learning more efficient, perhaps, and more valuable in a lot of ways.
All right, let's go for one more short break and ask FAA what they're up to for this year when we come back. That's coming up right after this. Welcome back. I have with me Khairul Nizam of FAA. Let's talk about the 2021 process for the organization. How are you guys planning the year ahead, considering that 2020 was a very radical year for people to adopt a digital transformation?
As I mentioned before the break, one of the some of the trends that we saw even before 2020, but made very apparent in 2020, were sort of online learning and bite-sized learning. We think that there's, of course, going to continue in 2021, and that those sort of trends will probably support another key trend too, which is what is always been referred to as micro-credentials. Imagine if you're doing a degree program, for example. You go to university for 3 years. You sort of go through maybe 10, 12 courses over those 3 years. With micro-credential, each of those courses or any parts of those courses can be made sort of a program on its own. So instead of doing sort of 10 courses to complete a degree program, you do a series of mini programs, and at the end of those mini programs you get what is called micro-credential, or a mini certificates or mini certifications or mini qualifications. That trend, I think, has really been helped by online learning and bite-sized learning, and that is something that in Malaysia we've been fairly active in promoting and working with institutions of higher learning, universities and so on, to also work with industry bodies to offer micro-credential courses that would be made available, that could be offered to not only students in universities, the full-time students or the part-time students in universities, but also to industry professionals. So industry professionals can actually go to class together with together with university students, perhaps, in going through all those micro-credential programs. One major attractiveness of those is I hesitate to use the word gratification, but the reward that you will get after completing each of those mini programs, and I think universities and industry bodies, industry institutions, financial institutions working together in those areas will help to the upskilling, the reskilling that we need in financial services industry.
Is it being rolled out right now?
It is being rolled out in some universities. We are working with some universities to roll those programs out.
Can you share some of the universities?
Perhaps not.
Not yet. Okay,
perhaps
fine.
Not yet.
Okay.
And we are also sort of introducing universities to industry bodies to do that as well.
Now, this is not new in terms of ongoing learning, right? Or adult learning, as they call it. But my thinking is because of the rise of MOOCs and because of the rise of all the other factors of online learning, there seems to be a lot of substitutes out there that could be consumed by potential learners that might not be part of the FAA accreditation programs, but they might still get the same kind of, I guess, takeaways from it, right? What would be some of the thinking that you want to share with people watching this interview when they say, you know, if I go to this place or that place, I can get the same amount of content versus the FAA, but not get the accreditation. So what would be some of the comments that you have for these kind of individuals?
When it comes to learning programs, it is we feel that it's very important that learning programs are properly focused on the learning outcomes or the competencies that learners would get at the end of that program. A lot of the programs, and I'm sure we've all been to a lot of training programs where we, sit in the class or go online. We perhaps do enjoy the learnings, the settings, and so on. But perhaps going away feeling, perhaps I didn't really learn that much during that learning programs, and a lot of that, I suppose, due to the design of the program, the structure of the program, the learning methodologies that are used in those programs, and of course, learning programs require a lot of investment. So, I think getting external quality assurance of a learning program,
a second pair of eyes to
will really benefit, of course, the learning providers in making sure that programs are designed properly, developed properly, and delivered properly, but really will bring a lot of value to the learners, so that learners will get their money's worth when they have attended your training.
Fantastic. That was my conversation with Khairul Nizam of the Finance Accreditation Agency of FAA or FAA. If you want to learn more, head on to their website to find out more programs and the kind of competencies that they have there. For now, that's it from me for this particular episode. Remember, if you can watch this also on your mobile devices, just download the Astro AWANI app, wherever you get the application. Until then, thanks very much for watching and a Happy New Year.